Hello, sister.
Hello, you.
How are you today?
I'm fine, thank you. How are you?
I am pretty good, actually. Thank you so
That's
much
good.
for asking.
Oh, you're welcome.
Okay, so here we both are doing good. And I feel like we should probably start this episode by saying that we had a couple of weeks off because life just happened, as it tends to do sometimes, you know?
Yes, it was actually me. I needed a little pause, honestly. Life happens. And I always feel like I need some sort of inner calm and inspiration to sit down and record these episodes. And the last couple of weeks has been a bit heavy. So, I just can't push through them. It has to feel right. Otherwise, it doesn't flow for me.
That's totally fair. And that's kind of the whole point of this podcast, too, to be real and take things as they come. Life isn't linear, and neither are we.
Exactly. So a little break, a bit of life, and now we're back.
Yes, back and ready. But first, we have to be honest here because we actually posted this episode already. And we thought the audio was okay. We even discussed it in the episode. But when I was out driving for quite a bit of time yesterday, I decided let me actually listen to this episode and see how we sound. And it was not very great. The sound was so bad that I could not listen to the entire episode. I wanted to stop on the side of the road and delete it, but I didn't. I waited till I got home. So hopefully not too many people have listened to that and suffered through. But yeah, I made a decision to delete it, unfortunately. So we'll try again.
Yeah, you made an executive decision there, but I totally agree. It would be silly to post something we're not happy with. And you are the main editor after all. So your call.
So if it sounds bad, it's all on me. Is that what you're saying?
Yeah. Let's put it that way.
Yeah, that's
all on you.
Yeah. But we're still a pretty new podcast, and there's bound to be some trial and error. Maybe I can say that.
But enough about that. Let's get started again.
Let's begin. So we've been talking about doing a Q&A episode for a while now, but since we're, like we said, a fairly new podcast, we didn't exactly get flooded with questions right away. And that's just how it is.
Yeah, we had to give you all some time to warm up first, maybe. I guess that's just the way it is.
Maybe, but over time now, we collected some really thoughtful and interesting questions, I think, from you listeners. And we thought, why not make a whole episode about them?
An episode where we try to answer your questions, or at least we will do our best. And it's a nice coincidence too, because this is actually episode number 20.
20. Wow. That might not sound like a huge number to some, but to me, it actually does sound like a pretty big number. 20 episodes of talking.
Yeah. 20 episodes of talking, laughing, reflecting, and some crying also across 2 continents. That's something to be proud of.
Yeah, it really is. So let's celebrate episode number 20 by diving into some of your questions, and we'll give you honest answers.
As always, let's get into it.
So the very first question I remember getting, and I think this was not long after we launched the podcast, and that was, what will you talk about once your sister has finished sharing her story about the loss and about everything that happened to her? And honestly, I remember thinking, yeah, that's a pretty fair question.
Yeah, I remember that too. And it's actually a really good place to start, I feel like, because I'm sure many maybe have wondered the same thing. I mean, I would have. But for me, this podcast was never meant to be only about my story. It started there, of course, with the loss, the grief, everything falling apart. But that was more like the doorway into a much bigger conversation. The idea was to take the things I've lived through and use it to open up to topics that might, I don't know, make people feel a little less alone. I remember that feeling so clearly myself after everything happened, just wanting someone to say, you're not the only one who feels like this. I mean, that would have meant the world to me at that point.
I understand that. And maybe in our own way, we also hope to bring a bit of hope with us. Not that polished Instagram style, stay positive kind of hope, but the real one, the kind you slowly discover even when things hurt, when you suddenly notice that life is still happening around you.
Exactly, because there can still be meaning, still be connection. You can have these tiny moments of joy. I mean, even laughter in the middle of all of it. And love, honestly, so much love. So that's what this podcast really is to me. Not just what happened in my life, but the things we all carry, how we cope and how we somehow keep moving forward.
Exactly. Because it's not just about loss, it's about life. And that's what I told that person that asked me that question too. It's not just about her story, but I guess life in general, because most people go through some kind of loss throughout their life. You know, so real life with all the messiness and the beauty and the painful parts, and maybe also the day-to-day moments in between. Some from your experiences, some from mine, and then also stories that we share from other people that we know of, things we've heard.
And we also try to mix in the science as well. So it's not just our personal perspective. I mean, it gives it a little more depth. So, yeah, I hope that answers the question.
Yeah, I think it does. And honestly, for those who've followed us from the beginning, they probably heard the whole thing evolved or heard it grow.
Yeah, that's true. And I think what surprised us both is just how much these conversations have expanded in a way. They've become deeper and more personal, but also broader. We've gone into love, friendships, identity shifts, resilience, I mean, grief, of course, hormones, trauma, and just all the different ways life shape us, or at least a lot of them.
And that's one of the things that we love the most, that no matter what the topic is, it somehow circles back to what it means to live. So today we're turning things around and answering your questions. Some serious, some are a little bit more funny, and some might have been a little unexpected.
Definitely. And some made us think even harder than we expected. I mean, it's not always easy answering questions, but we'll try our best.
So shall we jump to the next question then?
Let's do it.
All right. So the following question, but this one, it's not exactly an easy start.
We're diving deep right away, aren't we?
Of course. I feel like it's better to start with the heavier stuff and then end on a lighter note, right?
Mm-hmm.
So anyways, the question is, can you really prepare for grief?
Yeah, that is a big one. And I feel like we touched on it before. I mean, of course, we have.
Yeah, maybe. But I feel like we should go there again. And I also think that you have to take the lead on this one. I feel like it's more a question for you because you've been through so much. And I know that you have reflected a lot on this, if you could have prepared for it.
Yeah, I guess I have. But just to say it right away, I'm not an expert or a professional. I'm just me sharing from my experiences. And honestly, no, I don't think you can prepare for grief, unfortunately, or maybe even fortunately. You can imagine how painful it is or how it must be to lose someone you love. But when it actually happens, when it's your person, no, you cannot prepare for the emotional chaos that hits. You might think you know how you'd react, but you don't. I mean, you just can't.
That makes sense. We all like to think that we can imagine it. I mean, we talk about it, picture how it might feel, but I'm sure when it happens, it's a completely different reality. I don't think you can plan for that.
No, you really can't. And it's so personal also. I mean, everyone handle things differently. There is no formula and no clear answer. But I guess if I can say this, I've had kind of a advantage, or I know I have called it a toolbox, or maybe some experiences I've learned from. I mean, living with illness and uncertainty for so many years, you of course learn to adjust in a way, and that has taught me a lot about how I cope when life gets rough. So maybe that's made me a little more equipped to face these challenges, but not grief itself. Nothing truly prepares you for that.
I get that. But now I have to ask, because when you say tools, what do you mean by that? I mean, I think maybe that's actually the most helpful part of this question, if you can answer.
Yeah, maybe it is. For me, one of the biggest things was to stay present. I mean, really present, to not numb the pain, to really allow myself to feel the grief, all of it, even when it felt unbearable. That was a very conscious decision at the time.
What do you mean, though, when you say stay present?
Well, first of all, this was my way. I feel like I have to say that again. I don't think it's the right way for everyone, but I made a choice to stay away from numbing the pain. Still to this day, I hardly ever drink alcohol, for example. It just doesn't give me anything. I don't like the numbing feeling. It takes away the connection to what's real for me. So instead, I turn to physical things, like I know I've talked about in prior episodes, like running, ice dipping, moving my body, cleaning the house, the garden, the cabin, staying busy. And maybe that's kind of numbing too. I don't know. But that was the things that grounded me when everything else felt like chaos. But I think the key is to just find your way of calming your storm or the chaos, or calms your mind in a way.
Yeah. Finding what works for you. That makes a lot of sense. We're all so different, but that can probably also be so hard in the middle of everything, knowing what does work for you.
Of course it is. And I think this will be different from person to person, because I was never prepared for how hard it would actually be, even though I knew my husband was going to die and we had been through sickness for many years. I couldn't imagine the emptiness that followed, the identity shift and the silence. You just can't know until you live it, I guess, is the right thing to say.
Yeah, I can imagine. It's one of those things that you can only understand from the inside when you experienced it somehow. You can read about it, talk about it, but living it, that is probably a completely different story. One day, your main person, your husband, is there and such a big part of your life for many, many years. That's everything you know. The one that you talk to, say everything to, and lean on when things are hard, and then they are gone. They're not there anymore.
And you can never prepare for that, because it turns your whole world upside down. And I think that's where another really important part comes in, to be open, saying how you actually feel, even when it's messy or uncomfortable, because it is. You can't do grief alone, not in a healthy way. You need people, the ones who can hold your truth without trying to fix it in any way.
Yeah. And we're not really great at that as humans, are we?
No.
We hide the pain or pretend that we're fine because we don't want to burden anyone.
Yeah, That's a fact.
Mm-hmm.
But being open doesn't make you a burden. It makes you real. And that honesty is what connects you to others, especially in grief.
So maybe that's actually the only kind of preparation anyone can do then. Not trying to protect yourself from grief, but learning to stay open when it actually comes, if it comes.
I think that's really what it comes down to. You can't prepare for grief itself, but you can sort of prepare to meet it with honesty, I could say, just as you are, no filter. And grief kind of comes in waves, you know? Some days you're okay, and the next day you're on your knees. You never really know what's coming. So you just have to try to go with it, ride the waves instead of fighting them. Go with the flow, as you say.
Yeah. I feel like that's beautifully said.
Yeah, thanks. Just took me a few rounds of trauma to learn it.
Oh no.
Yeah, and hey, humor, that's another one. You need that too. And a little sarcasm doesn't hurt either.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, I feel like it could be a tricky balance sometimes, but I'll say this after you shared a few tips with us. Maybe the rest of us don't have to learn it the hard way now, that it could be helpful, you know?
That's the hope. Always.
All right, here's another one we got. Do you think grief makes a relationship stronger or harder? And that is a big question. What do you think, Nina?
Honestly, I think it can do both. On one hand, grief can make relationships stronger when you go through something really hard and painful. The people who stay close, the ones who actually stand in the storm with you, those people are real because it strips away all the surface stuff and things become more honest.
For sure. It kind of shows you who's really there for you, not just when things are good, but when everything falls apart also.
Yeah, exactly. Those relationships deepen because they're built on something very real. But grief can definitely make relationships harder too because you change, your identity shifts, your values shift, the way you look at life just shifts. What used to matter just doesn't matter as much anymore, or not at all. And that can be confusing for the people around you and also you.
Yeah, I felt that too. I mean, not in a bad way, but it was an adjustment because you were different after everything. I mean, of course you were. That is understandable and normal. And I think a lot of people didn't know how to relate to that at first. I mean, I had a hard time with it too.
It's very understandable looking back. And I think I would have felt the same way too if it was the other way around. And honestly, I didn't know how to relate to myself either for a while. Looking back, I can see it must have been hard to understand because you just can't. And you become almost a new version of yourself, as I said. And that can be scary for everyone involved.
For sure. I definitely tiptoed around you for a bit, and that's just how it is. I mean, you were finding your footing, and we were just trying to follow your pace. And I really believe that grief in general transform people. You can't go through something that big and hard and come out the same way, nor the same person.
No, I think that's impossible, actually. And of course, that transformation can make new relationships challenging too. Like dating again. I mean, there is this fear, a lot of new baggage and a lot of emotions and chaos at first, of course. But this is important. And there's also so much more awareness, depth, and honesty.
Yeah, maybe that's a positive thing that comes out of it, that you get more honest with yourself and everyone around you. And maybe that's just a different way of loving too. Like maybe more consciously, but also with more fear of losing again.
Yeah, completely. It's quite chaotic at first. But there's another side to this that I think is really beautiful about relationships, because grief can also open the door to new relationships, new friendships, people you never would have met otherwise, you know?
Yeah, that's true.
I mean, there's this almost instant connection when you meet someone who has gone through something similar. You don't have to explain as much, they just get it. And that's a really meaningful side effect of grief, or it can be, that you can find new people who feel like home in a way.
I love that. And I understand that, you have something really strong, a strong bond, or something in common that creates a strong bond, I can say.
Mm.
And I've also seen that in you, that you've met people along the way who you might never have crossed paths with if all of this hadn't happened. And those connections are really real and deep. And I'm thankful that you met those people.
I'm very grateful for that.
So I guess the real answer is that grief can make relationships stronger and harder, and sometimes both at the same time.
Mm.
But we can also say that it opens the door to new, beautiful relationships that you never expected. And then, of course, maybe you also might lose some along the way. But I feel like maybe that's okay.
That's really it, I guess.
Okay, let's shift a little, because we got a question that's pretty fair, and I understand that maybe people will think this since we are a new podcast, because someone asked, is it mostly family, friends, and acquaintances who listens to your podcast?
Yeah, I think that's a fair question to ask, because honestly, in the beginning, that was maybe exactly what we thought it would be, or I don't know.
I was. It's like, hey, mama, hi, my friends who take your time to listen. Thank you for pressing play, even if you're just being nice.
But to be honest, I don't even know what I pictured. We imagined maybe it would be a small circle. I don't know, people who already knew us, or were just curious maybe because, well, we're not exactly known for being talkative, outgoing sisters, are we?
No, we are definitely not. And I think a few people were actually surprised when we even managed to make a podcast together.
Yeah, I know. But it turns out it wasn't just family and friends, not even close, actually.
No, surprisingly not. And when we started checking the stats, and that little map on Spotify started showing where people are watching from or tuning in, not watching, actually, I just sat there staring at it like, wow, what?
Yeah. I didn't even know about this map. I remember you called me and told me. And at first, we honestly thought it was people we knew listening. We saw Thailand or Spain, then we thought, of course, okay, now someone is in Thailand or someone is in Spain traveling.
Yeah, now they have time to listen to us. Someone's holiday mode, I guess we can say. But then suddenly there were listeners in places like New Zealand, Japan, England, I mean, even Bolivia.
Yeah. And that's when we realized, okay, that's not just family and friends. That is real people in completely different parts of the world choosing to listen to us. And that felt a bit surreal and also kind of big, to be honest.
It's a strange feeling, quite humbling actually, because we sit here in our own little corners of the world, you in Norway and I'm in the US, and we talk about grief, love, life, our lives, and somehow it reaches people all over the world, people that we have never met. And I guess that's what podcasts are for. It's for people out there who are interested, but still, that they chose our podcast, that definitely means something.
It's both surreal and really moving. And I think it says something about how human all of this is, these topics. They connect across borders, languages, everything.
Yeah. Grief, change, hope. They're universal, I think we can say. Even if our words come out with a Norwegian accent.
Yeah, and some words are even pronounced all wrong.
Yeah.
But honestly, that's one of the most beautiful things about doing this in English, I have to say. It's opened up a much wider space for connection.
Yeah, totally. I feel like doing it in Norwegian would for sure make it easier, maybe more fluent, if I can say. That's the way that we naturally speak to each other. But I do love that we're doing it in English. It's like we have a second relationship now, a Norwegian one and an English one. It sounds silly, but you will understand what I mean. We're two Norwegian sisters on different continents, and we're talking about some of life's hardest and most real parts that we've gone through. And people from all over the world can listen. And it's kind of unbelievable that anyone who doesn't know us actually went to listen.
Yeah, it really is. And it's not that we've gone viral or something, far from it, unfortunately, still. But it's definitely something we're grateful for. And you just never know.
No, you never know.
About the viral thing.
Yeah, you never know. And to everyone out there, whether you're in Oslo or Orlando, Bergen or Brisbane, or maybe somewhere we've never even been. I haven't been to Brisbane, but maybe one day. But thank you so much for tuning in.
Yes, thank you so much for listening and for being part of this small but global little grief community.
It really means so much.
It really does.
So to answer the question again, is it mostly family, friends, and acquaintances who listens to our podcast?
No, but it started that way.
But it grew into something so much bigger. And speaking of listeners from all over the world, that actually brings up another question we've been asked quite a few times. And that is, have you ever regretted doing the podcast in English?
Honestly, no, not really. Even though, yeah, sometimes it would definitely be easier to just speak our own language and be completely ourselves, without having to translate every thought before it comes out. At least that's a thing for me.
Mm-hmm.
Or like I said before, pronounce a word totally wrong. Yep, that's me.
Yeah, that's true. And I feel like sometimes I have to write down notes too, because let's be real, sometimes I feel like we have to, because English isn't our first language after all.
Exactly. But yeah, at least for me, sometimes I sit here like, did I say that right? But at the same time, I actually kind of like it because it gives our podcast some character, maybe.
Absolutely. Yes, let's say that it does.
Absolutely.
But I did actually listen to a Norwegian podcast. It's on our own dialect. And for a moment there, I was thinking that would feel so nice or be so much easier and natural, maybe. Even just at least you're saying the right words.
Yeah, you don't have to think twice in a way. But then again, I also like that we chose English because it opens the door to people from all over the world, as we said.
That's exactly it. I feel like that is one of the biggest things about this, because more people can listen, and that is fun. Special.
Yeah. And it also makes it easier to talk about these deeper, heavier topics for me. or I mean, maybe for both of us, because for me, it creates this distance. Like I'm a slightly different version of myself, the English version, not totally me, or
Yeah, I know you mentioned that before, that it's easier to talk about your story because then it's kind of like you're from the outside looking in. It's not as personal then, too.
Yeah, exactly.
And honestly, even though 80% of our listeners are still from Norway, seeing people tune in from all over the world, I think that is just amazing. I love it. And I also have to say, doing it in English has actually broadened my vocabulary a little bit. Maybe I shouldn't admit that. But as we research and prepare for each episode, I keep running into words that I've never used before. And I feel like I learn something new every time.
Yeah, me too. It's kind of a learning cycle, isn't it? So no regrets at all. It might not always be perfect English, but it's our voice, and I guess that's what really matters.
And if people can handle our accent and our occasional word mix-ups, then I think we're good.
Yeah, that's all part of the charm. And honestly, it feels really good knowing that we are connecting with people from everywhere, not just Norway. And that's pretty special again.
So in short, no, we don't regret it. English has been a challenge even for me, but it has also given us this incredible chance to reach people we'd never meet otherwise. And I think that's worth it. Back to a harder one, because one of the questions we got was about how you, Nina, reacted when you found out that your boyfriend also had cancer. And I know this is a really difficult question, and we talked back and forth of whether or not you wanted to share more of that story. It's hard, it's personal, and it's close to the heart. I mean, your heart and even my heart. But you are willing to give it a try, right?
Yes. Or, well, it's a really hard question to answer, I feel like. I have to admit that. It's so hard to explain my emotions and reactions. It's completely impossible, but I will give it a try. And also, I'm thinking, is this really important to talk about? I don't know. Why do people want to hear this even? Is it useful?
I mean, I think it is, absolutely. I gotten the questions quite a few times. Maybe not how you reacted, but how is it possible that this happened? But I think people are also curious to how do you react to that? I mean, these are real human experiences, the kinds of things that some people unfortunately have to go through. But then you often feel like you can't talk about it. And I feel like sharing it might help someone out there feel less alone, or at least see that it's okay to feel overwhelmed, scared, or confused. And that's why I think it's worth including. But of course, I get why you would question it. And that's exactly why we weren't sure if we should include it. But if you are willing, I think it's worth sharing.
Okay. Yes. As you can imagine, it was a huge shock. It's, I think I've described it before as a nightmare, and that's still to this day the best way I can put it, because this was one of my biggest fears when I even dared to be open to love again. That something like this could happen to me one more time. That fear, that what if thought. I remember saying it out loud to people close to me. What if that happens again,
Yeah, I remember you said that, but then it's like, of course, that's not going to happen again, because those are the things that you don't think will happen again. But it felt so absurd at the time, I mean, what are the chances that it would happen again? It just felt so impossible, so unreal. And I remember when you called me and told me, I didn't know what to say. I couldn't believe it. It didn't seem real at all. Like, what? No, that cannot be true. Are you joking?
I know. Completely absurd. And at first, I must say I wasn't part of the hospital meetings before he got his diagnosis, when he was still going through all these tests and scans, I just couldn't do it. I wasn't ready. I don't know. I just couldn't. So his sweet sister went with him in the beginning because, of course, he couldn't go alone. I think he went over for his first scan alone. But yeah, anyways. And then the day came, the first doctor's meeting after the scan, when he called me from the hospital and told me it was cancer. And I remember standing in my bathroom at home when he called, and we both just started crying, of course. It was heartbreaking, terrible, unreal. But of course, the thoughts crossed my mind that it could be cancer, of course, of the symptoms and everything. But then again, you don't want to think that it is cancer again, because, at the same time, during that call, I had to try to stay as calm as I possibly could to try to reassure him, because I think, or for me at least, the last thing I would need if it were me on the other end was a hysterical person freaking out, because that's not very helpful.
No.
I said things like, it's going to be fine. They'll fix this. They're so much better at treating cancer now than they used to be. Most people recover. There are so many new treatments and stuff like that.
Yeah.
But also, that is true. It's not just sayings. They are really better at treating cancer now. Of course, he was devastated, completely broken, scared also. I mean, when you hear about the shock face, this is it, being delivered. This message.
Yeah, I can
Cancer.
imagine. Yeah. That is not a word you want to hear. So, of course, he was devastated and scared. What a message to get. I mean, poor him, but I can totally see what you mean. You need calm people around you when you're in that state. People who listen and reassure you and make you feel safe. I guess that's the best thing you can do there and then.
Yeah, and luckily that's what I did. And after we hung up, I just collapsed. I don't remember exactly, but I remember I fell on my knees, crying uncontrollably. This deep, painful sobbing.
Yeah.
I just couldn't stop. And at one point, I remember looking up and seeing myself in the mirror and just thinking, no, this can't be happening again. So it was just unreal. A nightmare, truly. There is no other or better word for it. I feel like no.
Yeah.
And this was in March 2023, just so people know. And my husband passed away in August 2020. So it was still so close also. And the pain, the memories, everything just came rushing back in a way. It's like you're being re-traumatized.
That's just heartbreaking. I completely understand how hard it must be to even go back there in your mind, reliving everything in a way, even though it's different.
Yeah, it really is. But after the shock settles, something else starts to appear. I remember when I finally stood up after crying on that bathroom floor, thinking to myself, because you have to kind of, I don't know, it's really hard to explain, but I have to think to myself that this is going to be okay, because it has to be. We'll get through this, and then you just have to dig deep to pull out every bit of strength you have and just be there, really be there for the person who's sick, because I love him so much. But it was hard couple of weeks before he finally started his treatments. So yeah, that's my honest answer to that question.
Thank you so much for sharing that, Nina. I think it is really moving and incredibly brave of you. Also, I have to ask, was it ever on your mind not to be part of a story? I mean, I know that he told you to think about yourself, think about yourself now. This might just be too much for you after everything.
Yeah, of course he didn't want this for me. None of us did. And I mean, that's totally understandable that he said that. I get it. He was thinking about me and my well-being. And that's typical him.
Yeah, definitely.
But honestly, hearing this question from others can be, or I mean, it is really provoking, actually.
I can see that too.
Because how can you just walk away from someone you love because they become ill? I mean, seriously, why do people ask me this or wonders about this? I don't know. And I totally get why people close to me, my family and friends, question it at first. Because, of course, they were, or you all were terrified for me, for my emotional capacity, everything. That makes total sense. But if it's just random strangers wondering about it, I mean, come on, get a life. I mean, I love him. You don't just walk away from love. That's not how it works for me, at least.
No. And I did not ever think that. I
know, but
think I would be the exact same as you. Of course, like there is no option there. You just don't do that.
No, that was never an option for me. I love him and I'll always be there for him. And I think that's that.
Okay, so here's another one we've been asked a few times. You talked about having guests on your podcast. Is that still the plan?
Yes, it definitely is. We've talked about it back and forth, and we actually have a few people in mind, people we know who might want to come and share their stories.
Yes. But then we've also had the whole English speaking part again.
Yep.
And that's honestly been one of the biggest reasons why it hasn't happened yet.
Yeah, some of the people we'd love to invite are, of course, Norwegian. And even though they'd love to talk about their experiences, or I don't know if they love it, but we try to convince them. The English part has honestly been, they get a bit hesitant when they realize it would have to be in English, of course.
Yeah, and I think that is totally understandable. It is a big step to open up and be that vulnerable from the beginning, and then to do it in a second language on top of that. That is not easy. Changes things.
No, it definitely isn't. And we completely respect that. It takes a bit of courage to sit here and talk about the hardest parts of life, even when it's just the two of us. So inviting others to do the same is something we want to do carefully and at the right time.
Yeah, but we do hope to make it happen eventually. We said from the start that this podcast is about connection and shared experiences, and having guests would add even more depth to that, I think.
Yeah, totally. So it's still very much part of the plan. We're just taking our time with it. I guess we can say that. And who knows, maybe one day we'll even do a few episodes in Norwegian if it makes it easier for some guests to join in, or I don't know, maybe not.
Well, I mean, maybe it would be fun. Or maybe we need to talk about that one, because how would we do that? I mean, do we put like text on top of?
I don't know.
Yeah, no, I think that would be too much. A little English here and Norwegian there. No, too complicated.
Yeah, that would sound very familiar to our everyday conversations, actually.
Yeah, it would. Half English, half Norwegian.
Mm.
Reminds me of my mom. She says she speaks pork English.
Yeah, that's another story. Inside joke. I think no.
Oh, when we say that though, I really feel like I need to tell the story about the time when our mom misspoke. You know, she calls it pork English. I don't know if that is even a word. It probably isn't. She doesn't love to speak English. She always tells me like, why did you not teach your youngest kids Norwegian? I feel like I can't say everything I want to say. So yeah, she calls her English pork English, but I actually think that her English is pretty good. I feel like us as Norwegians speak pretty well English. Or is that stupid
Yeah,
up
I
on
think so.
Norwegians to say?
No.
But anyways, what she does though is that she translates Norwegian words directly into English. She anglicizes them, you could say.
Mm-hmm.
But do you know what story I'm talking about now?
Yes, I do.
I just have to say it. So last summer, I believe it was, when we were visiting Norway, my mom made us breakfast, as she so nicely does every day, every morning. So when it was ready, she was calling us to come and eat, calling the herds, you know. So anyway, she had made us buns, small crescent-shaped pieces of bread that are called horn in Norwegian. So she called out to us, "It's ready, come eat. I made horny breakfast."
Jesus, what sounds so bad.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. Horny breakfast there. So
Horny
her.
breakfast for me and the kids. But yeah, the kids were just giggling and looking at each other like a little bit embarrassed.
Of course.
But we all know how she is, and we gently told her what that word meant. And then we all had a good laugh before enjoying our crescent-shaped Norwegian horny breakfast.
Yeah. So maybe our first visitor will be our mom. We just never know.
I don't know.
Might be a horny conversation. Let's see.
Stop. She's going to hate this. I'll tell her not to listen to this episode. All right, let's move on to something a little different. And actually, we gotten this question quite a few times. I guess people are just a little curious about us, like how it actually works to live so far apart and still do this podcast together.
Mm-hmm. And I think that's a good one. And honestly, I think people are just imagining it must be super complicated.
Like, how do we even manage to make a podcast from across the Atlantic? But the funny thing is, even though we live on completely different continents, I'm in the US and you're back in Norway, doing this podcast together has turned out to be easier than we first thought.
Yeah, surprisingly easy, actually. All we really need is a laptop, a pair of headphones, a microphone, and of course the right program to record in. Easy peasy, right?
Yeah. If by easy you mean a little bit of chaos and some trial and error in the beginning, then yes, for sure.
For
But
sure.
then, of course, it also takes time, lots and lots of time to talk through the topics that we're going to have, record it, and then afterwards edit it. And sometimes we just have been figuring things out as we go.
Oh, yes. I mean, especially in the beginning. Remember our first tries? I mean, the sound was questionable at best. And honestly, sound is such a key part of a podcast. We still struggle with the sound from time to time, like this episode that we posted, and then, So it's not always that easy.
No.
I even had to change my microphone because it made me sound like I was talking from inside of a bucket or something. And then there was that time I tried sitting in my bathroom with pillows everywhere, trying to make it better, like I was some kind of an acoustic engineer.
Yeah, I remember that. Lots and lots of pillows and blankets. Put it around you so the sound is better.
Yeah,
that's the
didn't
trick.
work out.
No, it didn't work. But seriously, your sound in the first few episodes, it was, maybe let's just call it rustic. I think rustic. Editing saved us, thankfully. It made it a little bit better. And some episodes we've actually had to record twice as well, which is a little bit awkward in many ways, because then we have to redo it, and then does it sound as natural as it did the first time? Do we get the same reactions when we talk about things? But I feel like with the editing and cutting from here and there, we managed to make it work, even though maybe it didn't sound as good.
Yeah, and maybe I just have to say that the cringe factor of hearing your own voice every week, I mean, do people ever get used to that? I don't know. But we actually got a lot of feedback from listeners that our voices are pleasant to listen to, that we sound calm and steady, and that makes the English easier to understand. So we'll take it, and we thank you for that. Thank you.
Such calm and monotone. Monotone? Is that the
I don't know.
Voices?
I have no idea.
Calming, soothing sounds.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'll happily accept that compliment.
And we love our music too, right? I mean, who doesn't love a little theme song moment in the middle of life's heavy stuff, right?
I love it too. I feel like maybe we should play our other song in this episode. You know, the very first one that we used.
Oh,
so that people don't forget
idea.
about it.
Yeah, good idea. Let's do that. And listeners, you have to stay tuned until the end here. It's a little treat for everyone.
Definitely. So to answer the question, yes, it's definitely possible to make a podcast work from different continents. It takes a bit more planning, for sure. I mean, we're on different time zones as well. So you record at night, and I do like morning or midday. And it also takes some patience because it, of course, takes time. Yeah. And sometimes also some creative problem solving. And yes, the cringe factor is real, but with some feedback like that, it is easier to keep going. So thank you for that, Calm Voices.
Absolutely. I mean, distance doesn't have to be a barrier. In fact, it can even be kind of a bonus. We get the space to, this space to reflect, plan, and even laugh at ourselves, which honestly, I think makes the podcast even better.
Yeah. So for anyone wondering how two sisters do this long distance thing, it's chaotic, a little messy, sometimes cringe-worthy, but definitely worth it. Speaking of distance, the next question was, how is it like to live so far away from each other? And it was meant in general as sisters this time, not about recording, but yeah. Nina, how is it to live so far away from your amazing little sister?
Oh, well, honestly, I must say it sucks sometimes. I mean, you're my sister and we live on different continents. That's just wrong. but I guess we've gotten used to it over the years. And thank God or whoever for FaceTime.
Yeah, thank God for FaceTime. But no, it's not exactly a quick coffee visit, is it? It's not like I can say, hey, do you want to meet for lunch? I mean, a lunch date is not the same over FaceTime. But of course, I feel like we've gotten used to it. Home for me is still in Norway with all of you.
I guess that never changes. But I think I would say it's this mix, loving where we both live, but still missing that closeness, the everyday stuff, as you said, being able to drop by for dinner or coffee or just spontaneously hang out.
And that's what I miss the most, because that's also what we used to do. You know, we used to have sleepovers and stuff when the kids were younger. Maybe that would have changed now anyways as the kids are older, but we would still meet more often, I think, just to hang out. So that's what I miss the most, the ordinary random little moments, not the big holidays or special occasions, but yeah, just seeing you face to face.
Those shared everyday moments, they're the ones that remind you what distance takes away. But maybe that's also part of the beauty. We don't take the time we do get together for granted.
No, we don't. And at the same time, I think the distance has actually made us closer in a strange way. I know we don't talk every single day, or at least we didn't before this podcast. But now we actually talk every day. I feel like maybe there's a day here and there that we don't. But maybe the difference also now is that when we do talk, it's more real. It's no small talk anymore.
We go straight to the deep stuff. Grief, love, trauma, menopause, all the fun topics.
Yeah. Really deep.
Really deep.
Yeah, we don't exactly keep it light all the time. But of course, in between, it's just random, everyday stuff too.
Of course. But I think the podcast has helped us reconnect on a deeper level, as you say. I mean, despite the distance, we've ended up talking about things we probably wouldn't have otherwise.
Yeah, that's so true. And I think being apart forced us to be intentional about staying connected too, in a way that we maybe wouldn't have if we lived in the same city.
And when we finally do see each other in person, it's like no time has passed at all.
Yeah, we just pick up right where we left off, and that's such a good feeling. I think I actually forgot to hug you last time.
Yeah, you did.
I saw you when I was home. You and your son came, and I hugged him, and then I just forgot because it felt like I just saw you.
Yeah. It's fine. It's fine. I didn't need that hug.
Okay.
Anyways, so yeah, living far away from each other is hard, but it has also made our relationships stronger in some ways.
Yeah, I agree.
Say that.
We found our own rhythm across time zones, laughter, and the occasional emotional chaos.
That pretty much sums it up.
And I think it also shows that distance doesn't have to be a barrier. It just changes the way that you connect. And sometimes it could even be for the better.
Yeah.
Okay, Nina, here is one for you that I debated asking because I know the answer. Because someone asked if you ever considered moving to Miami to be closer to me and my family.
Yeah, and that is an easy one. No, I've honestly never really considered that, like in a serious way. Sorry.
That is fine. Even though you answered that a bit quick. You're not even going to pretend to think about it?
Sure, maybe pretending. But I love my little town, the people, the community, the calm. It's home. It's where I feel grounded and safe.
Yeah, I get that. You're very rooted there. You'll probably go crazy with all the noise and chaos here anyways. Alligators and palm trees and driving everywhere. Sun, humidity, you name it.
Yeah,
I
mean, seriously. Florida is great to visit, as you say. Palm trees, sunshine, warm evenings. Who wouldn't love that? But living there full time now, as the world looks today, I don't think so. I'd miss the seasons also and the people.
I actually do miss seasons. I have to admit. I feel like you appreciate things more then, if you know what I mean.
I do.
Yeah. So, yeah, just enjoy freezing your butt off in Norway, and I will lay in the sun here.
Yeah, but hey, never say never. Sometimes it's definitely tempting to come over for a few months and maybe even a year or two at some point. But then I'm moving in with you guys. That can be my plan B in life.
Oh, wow, I'd love that. I'm made to clean and cook for me.
Yeah, I'd probably be.
Was that what you were thinking?
That was exactly what I was thinking, yeah.
Good. Yeah.
But I'd probably be homesick after a few weeks.
Yeah.
But yeah, of course, it would be amazing to spend more time with you guys, the kids, the beach, the sunshine, just not forever.
No, I totally understand that. You'll stay the hometown girl, and I'll keep my palm trees for now anyways, because you never know where we end up.
It's also a thing.
Yeah. But remember, home is where the heart is, and it could be Florida.
Yeah, fair enough.
Selma.
Yeah, that's also a thing. I have a dog. Sometimes she snores in the background. She's always close. So say hi to Selma.
Eating on something. I feel like I can hear.
She wants to go to bed.
Yeah.
So I think that's a wrap.
Yeah. Okay, you go to bed and I will continue with my day, cooking dinner. All right, but that was it. Like you said, we answered most of the questions that we got. And it was pretty fun, different, but fun.
Yeah, different. A bit easier, actually. Just answer questions.
Yeah, that's true.
So keep them coming.
Okay, and then also remember to listen to that song that's at the end of the episode if you're interested.
That's quite good.
Yeah.
Okay. Bye now.
Bye-bye.
I'm trying to make a podcast. We call it Grief and Life as we know it, and we want it to be a podcast about hope. And all this because one of us had a dream. The dream was portrayed in black and white, where we both spoke English. We wanted a theme song for our podcast, therefore we asked for an upbeat, jazzy and hopeful tune. First we wanted no singer, but AI decided it best if we did. This whole ordeal sums up our technical prowess. This whole ordeal sums up our technical prowess.